Mikhail Aïvanhov. May 22, 2019. Interviews, a gay celebration in the Canaries. And dear friends, I'm extremely happy to see you again after a few days. I have decided to be as close as possible to you at this time of year. If there are any questions in you, then I will answer in relation to the dynamics that are currently underway, at the individual and collective level, and I'll also let the headmaster, LUC, speak in some questions, because, of course, he is one of those who are embodied and who are living the process, and in relation to some questions, it is better for him to answer than me. So, dear friends, I convey to you all my blessings and love, and we will begin to listen to the questions you have to ask in the context, if you will, of the current period, and it can concern anything you live, or do not live. Please avoid talking about the events that anyone can see in what is happening on this earth, but preferentially in what you are living, or what you are not living, in you. We are no longer interested at all in the environment or outside, but only in a process that is being experienced or not, inside you. So, dear friend, I'll let you question or ask questions, and we'll see. So if I give the speech to the headmaster, I'll tell you, and then I'll come back for the next question, or other questions, depending on the type of questions, but I'm the one who decides, so I'm the first one here. But I'll tell you if I'm not the one who answers, right? So it's up to you, starting with the first question. Come on, you can go, I'm not biting, I'm not going to eat you. Voice. They say they have no questions. So if you don't have a question, then we'll wait for a question? Voice. Yes, there is. Brother, it's not a question. It can also be a testimony, yes, of course. Brother, many of us are really happy to hear from you again. Yes, I am well aware of that, of course, and you know that, as I was, when I was incarnate, in the same way, I try in any case, to be as close as possible to you, whatever my functions within the noble assembly of the Melchizedeks. So I thank you for these thanks if I can say so. You can also, as I said, testify to your experience, not to excite those who do not live it, but precisely to show all that is transforming in you and that can give landmarks to the sisters and brothers who are committed to discovering what is to be lived, and that you live, right? So, I have all the time in the world. Brother, I have something to say, but I don't know if I will be able to express myself well. Express, it doesn't matter. Brother/voice. So last night, I had the impression that I knew what belonged to the consciousness, and what was related to the consciousness. So, the impression I had that, for consciousness, there must be a reflection, there must be something created, something that manifests itself. Absolutely. Consciousness cannot exist outside the projection process within a frame, or within a dimension, but also within a form. If there is no form, whatever it is, even the most subtle, it is very simple, there is no longer any consciousness, there is the truth that you are, and what you express before you continue, is, of course, it is the moment when you realize, as you say, what you have just said, and for that, indeed, the eternal I as Eberset must be present. And this eternal I gives you to see the two facets, that is, the consciousness and the form and, at the same time, the disappearance of the consciousness. It has been called for many years the ultimate presence, the infinite presence, the heart of the heart. This is the moment when the consciousness extinguishes itself on you, the observer, the eternal I who is not the consciousness, sees it clearly. It is a form of encouragement, if I can say when you experience this, to prepare yourself to live the zero time, that is, the infinite space that you are, before dimension, frame or form. And it is precisely the fact, I would say, of being able to make and be able to live the junction between consciousness and what is prior to consciousness, which creates freedom, which puts you in a gap. There is no need for vision, sometimes there are visions. There is no need for vibration, even if sometimes there is. It can happen at any time, and at that moment you discover with amazement, happiness, and sometimes also, with still some fears, that you are nothing of any form whatsoever, and that you are precisely what is at the origin of the form, and if you prefer, at the origin of creation. And I'll let you continue then. Yes, so once the consciousness is gone, what's left? Well, I had the impression that there may still be information, and that's all. More form, nothing, but information perhaps. So I can hear you, but we have to practice for the microphone. Voice. Repeating the question. This is the most complete information of creation that has been named, I believe, by the headmaster and Eber, the zero time. The zero time contains all the information. It is access to true knowledge, that is, knowledge that is not knowledge that can be studied, that cannot even be experienced, but that can only be observed. This is what Eber, Aïvanhov and others have said. It is the moment when, somewhere, you realize as you live it, that you are not consciousness. And it is at this location, which is not a location that you can locate, except perhaps in the heart of the heart, that you achieve this by living it. That's exactly what it is. So of course it leads to zero time, which is the source of the information, since nothing contains everything, and it's both aspects of the same thing. That's exactly what it is. And when you start, then I don't know how to say, it's not perceiving or seeing, when you start to live that, well, you're never fooled by your conscience again, even if there's still some form of distance from Agape's permanent experience. But it is the confirmation that will allow you to see that you are not the consciousness, and, in a way, to put yourself in the best disposition, if I can say so, to live Agape, the Absolute if you prefer, who is known now. It is a reservoir not of force, zero time, it is this Absolute that contains absolutely everything. This is what predates light, but of course contains light and also contains all the dimensions, all the possibilities, all the possible parts of consciousness, in any dream, in any world. And I think it was explained in length, breadth and depth by Eber and the headmaster, that is, the ability to see this clearly. But when I say clearly see this, it is not a vision, it is also there, as Bida said, a direct understanding of who you are, and which does not need words, explanations, when you live it, of course. You can continue if you want. Is that okay with you? Thank you. Voice. He thanks you. It's okay. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to express this. Do not hesitate, even through the new manifestations, perhaps for you, even if it concerns, I would say, energy, vibration or visions, no matter. You're all on the way, in one way or another, but towards the same goal that has never moved, that is, zero time, and Agape, total bliss, the abode of supreme peace. This is how you see and understand, by living it, that all consciousness is only a dream, because it is not permanent and that you are permanent and anterior to any form. It obviously puts an end to the quest, it obviously puts an end to research of any kind, and it places you more and more accurately, I would say, in what is the eternal I, and as Bida said, forever. I told you, when I came back a few days ago, that we too, the elders, had to digest our own creations, our own projections, in this world as in any world, because it was necessary, despite everything we had built, especially all the Melchizedecs, whatever they are, to transcend all this at the very level of our field of consciousness, in order to discover in totality, like you, the freedom before consciousness. It is from that moment that, gradually, since then, not in May, but especially since the end of this year, when the fusion of the Thes was carried out, to allow us to approach freely all the dimensions of the heavens of the earth, and not to dwell and remain around the sun. It has been a gradual approach to our consciousness, our ships, which are now, as we have said, and as I have repeated, all around the earth, and no longer around the sun. And you also understand why, for so many years, we, the elders and the stars, have insisted on a form of understanding, first of all silence, which is not the silence of words, but inner silence, which is the best posture to clear, if I may say so, the obstacles of consciousness, and find you to live the truth. Truth is discovered and experienced when you are no longer bound to time, and you somehow access the information of zero time, which is both nothing and everything. And all this, of course, you have had countless teachings, for example, Master Philippe de Lyon, on humility, or other elders, of course, each with their own approach, of the same process you are now experiencing. And of course, you have a good idea that from the moment you experience this, even at a single moment, it will unfold gradually through your body of flesh, through your body of eternity which, I remind you, are all there to put you in what you call agape, to put you in this kind of happiness, which depends on no history, no karma, no preconditions. You discover yourself as prior to any form, and when you experience that, indeed, well, the heart can radiate spontaneously. You're at the same time love, you are permanently in the gift, permanently in the embracing and, indeed, at that moment, there is nothing else to do but to be present to yourselves, and for life to lead you to live as well in your family, in your work, and in your relationships, in your encounters, in every possible way. This is how, as Eber said, the pandemic developed and contaminates not only from one person to another, but also, as you can see, through it. He told me everything that has been created at the level of different, as he said, media or social networks, which allow us to ignore distance, identification with a form or an image, but simply resonating in what they call, in what we all call, with our name and with our last name. The intelligence of light realizes it, you have nothing to do with it, the one who receives or lives the agape resonance has nothing to do with it, and as Eber developed it, it happens between one and the other, to live that there has never been neither one, or the other. It is truly an extraordinary resolution, which will put you in this ineffable joy. I tell you, once it is lived once, even if it is only for a minute, the process of the intelligence of light no longer needs you, it is done independently of you, and it gives you to live, with more and more, if I can say, inner certainties, that you are only that joy which depends on nothing, and this, today, as you said Eber, whatever your previous vibrations, and whatever you have experienced before, or not. It is really and concretely open to everyone, without distinction, and I believe that, Headmaster, Eber, Bide, have perfectly developed this. It is the posture, both of giving oneself, and also of embracing what is there, without question. The questions are for later if you have any. But you must at some point be, at some point, in your own circumstances, in this kind of relaxation, acceptance and sacrifice, the gift of yourself, if you prefer, that will make you live that you are neither one nor the other, and that you are both one and the other, than anyone. You are, as has been said, by different voices, the totality of creation, the totality of dream, and it is simply something that had been forgotten, something, of course, that had been diverted by confinement, by what was called predation. But today, you no longer have to protect yourself, except from yourself, that is, from your own fears, from your own projections, from your own images, and you will, from that moment on, be totally happy, without object, without anyone and without nothing. And as has been said, when you live it, you can neither be wrong nor be deceived. You recognize yourself, it's the truth. You know you are that, from the moment you experience it, even if it is not installed. And it puts an end, of course, as has been said, to any spiritual quest, it puts an end to any lack, it puts an end to any questioning, especially with regard to your future. But of course, it is normal that you are questioned by the processes if you are sensitive, vibratory, energetic, or even by certain visions, but you know very well that they only cross you, they do not stop. And that's why you've always been told not to stop what's happening, but to let it pass, or if you prefer, to let it pass you by. And I also said last time that we are many, many people, not only among the elders, but among the countless peoples of the intergalactic confederation of the free worlds, to approach you, to touch you, when you do agape, during your sleep, also by surprise, in order to make you live that you are no more than you or than us. because, as I said, that's how you recognize yourself. It is not something logical, it is not something that can be easily explained, but it is something that is quite livable and, above all, that does not require any prerequisites. Only those who still believe they are conscious, and who want to tell themselves stories, for the moment, do not live it. And of course, for them, especially those who have remained in the archetypes, in everything we have told you for countless years, are deprived of that joy, as long as they have not understood and experienced that they were none of that. It is not a punishment, since only you can realize it. But access to zero time is everywhere, but you must approach it, and you cannot approach it while you are still in the belief. What you see, what you experience, is the truth. Truth is without image, truth is without conscience, agape is without world, agape is everything but a projection. It is both the ultimate truth and the first manifestation of consciousness, as you know. And you discover, without having to go through everything, that you were there, if I can say, before, or if you prefer, that you have always been there. And despite your ever said, you've never moved. That is the strict truth. But we have to put this in a particular context of the earth. So of course, as I told you, we too had to solve some of the projections of our consciousness. But these were not mistakes we had made, times when we were. There was no other possibility than to make the soul evolve, to make it turn around, to increase the vibratory processes, something that you have done in great numbers, through different media, whether it was OU-Tres dimensions, or others for that matter. But today, all this too must be dropped. It is not a loss, whatever you think, whatever you feel, because if you feel the opposite, if you think the opposite, you simply cannot live it, and it takes, I repeat, 2 minutes to live it. But you have brothers and sisters who are so arched about their stories, you have brothers and sisters who can't live without stories, they need to tell stories, to tell themselves stories, they want to play a role. But it's nothing but pride. The one who lives agape does not tell himself a story, he knows that pride is nothing, and that it is an obstacle, he should not even bother with it. That's when joy and agape take up all the space. You're never fooled again. But that doesn't stop you from using your ephemeral knowledge afterward. If you're a doctor, you continue to be a doctor. You see, but you are no longer fooled, whatever your activities, your professions, or your occupations. But you live agape, and that's the most important thing. And, remember, you can't shoot with agape. Besides, I'm going to tell you something, and I think I've told you, and it's the strict truth. All those who, today, tell you that they don't want this what, it means what, that they don't live it. They did not understand that agape was not just a definition, it is an experience, beyond any definition, like the source code of geneticist mothers or the language given by fame. You can oppose it all you want, but if you refuse it, it means you haven't experienced it. And besides, it's very funny, because there are so many of you living agape, and to see the positions, not of those who are not yet living it, but of those, among the sisters and brothers, who are against it. At the time, several years ago, I spoke of Turnikota and spiritual pride, but here it is exactly the same thing. They are brothers and sisters, who necessarily have a reptilian stellar origin or lineage, and who cannot see, and who will never accept to live the truth. That's what I think, or especially the headmaster, called the spiritual ones. It's not a mockery, but it's still humor, because you have to be very stupid to refuse a word that reflects the total reality. And you see very well, I am not talking about those who hope to live it, or who are desperate not to live it, but I am talking about all those, without exception, who seek to oppose head-on, to everything we have said. They are in pride, and this pride comes directly from their stellar origin, or from one of their lineages, which is called reptilian. Because they must understand, through agape's non-living by agape's refusal, that they are only predators. I told you a few days ago, that soon we will drink with the Aikons. So don't mind these brothers and sisters, they will try to take you through their visions, through their speeches, that's where then in agape, and they have only one way to do that, it is to lead you towards good, bad duality. The one who lives agape knows very well that good and evil are an illusion, even if they're omnipresent on the surface of this world. Agapians are not idiots. They live the energies, they feel the energies, they see it every day, good and evil at work in this illusory world. And I guarantee you that it is these brothers and sisters who are really, and here, it may shake them up, but of none-named stupidity. It is not a criticism, you have to love them as I said, but they do not see it, they cannot see it, whatever the experience is, whatever the experience of all the energies, whatever the experience of all the crowns, but remember, the executioner or the one who tries to take you elsewhere than where you are, is playing the same game. Simply, like the bad boys, they don't even know it. But you can laugh about it, really, and you laugh about it as soon as you experience it. But they don't. They will be etched on their conscience, they will write texts, they will take you out of the reasoning, they will talk to you about energy, they will talk to you about vibratory rises, they will try to justify by saying that nothingness is the opposite of love, but just by affirming this, they are only demonstrating to those who live it, that they are stupid, and this stupidity is not a judgment, on the contrary, it will make them enter a fire by friction. When they get tired of having visions, when they get tired of projecting absurd stories rather than living love, you will never see them, these brothers and sisters, talking to you about love, without even using the word agape. They will always talk to you about energy, they will talk to you about vibration, they will justify themselves, but, in the meantime, they do not like whatever they say. You know very well, for those who live agape, that when you live it for even a moment, you're in the gift of yourself, you're really in service, it is not a yoga, it is. You cannot do otherwise. And of course, when you are in the service, you don't care about visions, diagnoses, perceptions, good and evil. So as Zebba said, and as Zebba said, let them dream. Those who have met the whales can no longer be deceived, because they have seen that they are as big as all dimensions and all space. But these brothers and sisters who oppose each other, whatever their speeches, are not at zero time. They are in the game, of consciousness. It is not a criticism, once again, since we have said and I say it, sorry, I did not have the opportunity to say it again, but let them dream, the dreamers. They also have their roles, as I said at the time, for bad boys and horns. Leave them alone. This is the operating mechanism. And they are convinced that they are right. So they will find you visions, justifications, they will take some brothers and sisters with them, but it doesn't matter, it's just that the brothers and sisters they are training, they had to go through it too. Just stay agape, just serve, just love without any questions, and you will receive 100-fold. You will never be tired again, you will never be in need again, you will be in happiness, in joy, even, or peace if it is not yet total joy, but you cannot be deceived by this peace. Do you think that all those who are still in the vibrations, and who oppose agape, saying that this word means nothing, they are simply unable to live it? You know very well that if you repeat agape and faham and other names that have been given to you, I believe these are the source codes, while your rib cage vibrates, there is no longer any vision, there is no longer any doubt, while they feed the visions, they feed the energies, they feed the vibrations, but it is over the vibration rises. So of course, fortunately there are brothers and sisters who continue to make vibratory rises, for those of you who are still very far from the truth, who have not even heard of agape. There I express myself precisely for the countless brothers and sisters who have followed the teachings to the letter, and who today find themselves cornered by their own pride. Of course, they can't see it, they can't understand it. So I won't say, have mercy on them, it's no use, but love them above all, let them dream, let them burn themselves out, let them get angry, even angry, by telling you that it's not true, but because they don't live it. You know here is everywhere that, from the moment you live agape, you recognize each other, you don't need words, you don't need justification, even if there are energies, vibrations and visions, you are no longer fooled. You're living the truth, totally. And the positioning of consciousness today is becoming increasingly clear. I think that, for years, I have said, love or fear. Bida said, love or suffering. Well, when they get tired of suffering, when they get tired of spending energy trying to convince anyone, they will have exhausted their vital energy and a gate will fall on them. I would not like to be in their shoes at that time, because they too will have to do their mea culpa. They will blush with shame and you will all laugh together, and as I said, we will drink with the Ekans. I believe that Ebba and the headmaster told you, if there had not been the Ekans, if there had not been the administrators of the worlds that locked you up, you would have continued to play that game of consciousness, how you say it, in perpetuity, without any possibility of waking up. However, you had all made, we had all made, at the initial moment, the oath and the promise to leave the dream. There had to be a shake, there had to be a surprise, there had to be an experience, regardless of all the collective events you see today, and it's called a gape. And you will see him more and more, and besides I was talking with the headmaster, he tells me that he calls them red noses. Well yes, because for the one who lives a gape, it shows like the nose in the middle of his face. They're sad clowns, but love them, that's enough. Do not contradict them, do not contradict yourself and what you are going through, be silent if you prefer. Break the bridges of dialogue and love them in silence. You know very well that you who have lived a gape, who live it even if it is not permanent, that you are complete with it, whatever happens in your life, or on the surface of this world, you know that you are the treasure, you can never doubt it. While they are forced to go through consciousness, to construct scenarios that have no idea, with mechanisms of exitry inversion, of justification, in general what I think you call them. Love them, they don't see their red noses. You see. Just as we, the ancients, in our last incarnation, have all projected a new world. Even me, even Peter Deneuve, of course, because the veil of oblivion, that is, the primary anomaly, prevented us from discovering the truth. Only Bida succeeded, and we explained it to you in the story when it appeared in 2012, it was the only one who had totally escaped form. We were dependent on what we had created. Nisargadatta did not create anything in his lifetime, on the contrary, he spent his time denigrating, but not maliciously, with love, all those who played with consciousness and stopped on the intermediate planes, like the ascended masters. And today unfortunately, or fortunately, because they are there too, and it is not by chance, brothers and sisters who systematically have a reptilian origin or lineage. They cannot participate in a gape, you will not see them on virtual exchanges, you will not see them in groups, they tend to exclude themselves, and you understand very well why some very close brothers and sisters, here as everywhere, seem to disappear, they cannot face a gape, they care about their conscience. It makes sense, it makes perfect sense. And that was important for me to say, and because I believe that both Ebba and Bida were not, in my opinion at least, and now, clear enough about that. But then, one thing at a time. And now, a gape, zero time is so close to the collective of the earth, but I say it with some form of shame, but shame participates in the resolution, the forgiveness and the grace. But to the end, these beings, I would say, so headmaster says to me, say, they are dangerous. No, they are not dangerous, they have a function, but until the last moment they will not experience it, because they opposed each other head-on, because of their stellar origin or one of their lineages, they were linked to the Ekans, of course. And many of them have had memories of the worlds they've locked up. But today they are in their rightful place. Let them get excited, they will consume themselves too. Love them, but do not play their games, you have nothing to justifying a gape, you just have to be there, to love, to serve, to hug, to console, you do not need words for that. I believe that, with the headmaster and other friends, you have developed manual techniques that make it possible to shunt all these aspects of consciousness, and to make this a gape body life, and consciousness can only follow. But of course you will never see these sisters and brothers practice agape resonance or the fire of the Sacred Heart, simply because for them, from where they are, it is a total illusion. But you all have friends, brothers and sisters who are like that, don't you? They're not responsible, they're not even guilty, and I'd say, so I know that headmaster says they're dangerous. I would not say that they are dangerous, I am simply saying that they will do everything, without knowing it, to delay that collective event, and their positioning of consciences is the only obstacle today to the definitive installation of zero time on Earth. There is only them. I'm not talking about the sheep, the ones who are sleeping, let them sleep. And I think Abba told you, hurry up and get out of the religions, otherwise you are drawn into conflict, you are drawn into duality, and, of course, you observe it from all over the world. I think Abba told you, it's everyone war against everyone. Do you want war or do you want the peace you are living? There is no other question. And then, live your life, whatever the life gives you to live, whatever your age, whatever your profession if you have one, agape does not take you away from anything. So of course, and for more than a year now, you have had brothers and sisters who are half in stasis, because they have not finished metabolizing their history, and you often find that they are brothers and sisters who have been enrolled in spiritual journeys and that the habits of these journeys naturally prevent them from letting go. But it is not they who can give up, they cannot do it by themselves. When they have consumed all the stories, all the illusions and see all the vital energies, that is, they are vegetables, they are at home, they can no longer move, they live not joy, but peace, but they are no longer able to do anything. Even to them I say, let yourself be consumed, and the more you accept, the more you will experience total surrender to the light, and the more you will be in the service and gift of yourself. You need nothing, and especially not a master, especially not a guru, especially not a religion, and even less the visions of anyone, nor the energies of anyone. If you accept that, you are free right now, whatever the state a few seconds before, and if you don't experience it, it doesn't matter, you have accepted it. The intelligence of light recognizes your acceptance, and somewhere your sacrifice. And little by little, all these stories, all these ultimate veils of consciousness, or stellar origins, or stellar lines, will be consumed by love. You have brothers and sisters in spiritual circles who are still terrorized today by the idea that they are not consciousness. They tell themselves stories, they need scenarios, they need us to look at them, they need us to follow them, but the one who lives agape has ever told you, you can't follow him, you can only live him, with the same intensity and equality. Otherwise, you will be in opposition, you will try to justify yourself, you will condemn, but you're the one who is condemned when you condemn. The one who proclaims agape, he doesn't care, it's not your speeches of those who oppose, nor the bad boys, nor the econs, nor any archetype that can deviate them from an iota. You can't fool someone who lives agape, even at times. He knows what he is going through, even if it is not complete, and he will never again be subjected to what you tell them, whether it is a priest, or a guru, or a spiritual master, or even a member of your family. That's very important, very, very, very important. So I'll let you talk again and I'll stay here, and I think the headmaster prefers to listen. Well, I suppose so. Voice: do you have a question? Brother: yes. A question, but in part, I just heard the answer, I'm still asking it. Last night, I was told. Know that I have been telling you for a long time, since the beginning when I met you, when I received the light of Christ. So let our sister repeat, now we need. Voice: he has, he's going to ask a question, but he's already had part of the answer, but he's still going to tell us it again. Last night, he heard, so repeat to me, what was told to him, a very long time ago, when he had had a first contact with the light. At that time it was not the light, it was God, since he did not know the light, about 40 years ago. Oh yes, the conditions were not the same, there was the primary anomaly, of course. We had him, I will teach you, I will show you the way, I will look at you. Yes. This message has often been repeated to me. It was in the future, wasn't it? Yes, until I arrived today, until I know today, until I received today. So it is true, as I told you last night, I have only known today's message for 2 years. And last night, I was told the following thing. We're listening to you. In the past, I spoke with you in the future. Today I will no longer speak in the future, because you are. Exactly, and so you must have experienced what's going on in the middle of your chest as well, of course. Of course. And then you told me something I have to tell you now, emotion in voice. We're listening carefully. Fear not, you are Christ. Absolutely. It is not a claim, but you are Christ. It is the strict truth, it is the strict truth. And it is up to us today to receive this message. Absolutely, and the sentence you use do not fear, when it is a star on Mary, she does not tell you do not fear, she tells you do not be afraid. This is the difference between Christ, beyond the archetypes, the feminine polarity, it will call you by your first name, it is Mary's call even if it is a star sister, but if it is a star or a feminine polarity, it will tell you do not be afraid, if it is a male polarity, Christ, it will tell you do not fear, and as you have expressed it perfectly, it speaks to you or it speaks to you, in the present, it is not tomorrow. Today. It wasn't possible yesterday, but it's today. Exactly. There is no past, there is no future, that's zero time, and you can ask questions around you. You have countless brothers and sisters who are going through this, even if words are not heard. And besides, when you live agape, you are no longer afraid, you are not afraid, you know it, you do not need to protect yourself against anything, nor to plan food stocks, nor to prepare candles consecrated as has been said by some saints, you know that where you are, you do not have to protect yourself from anything. You're available for life, as has been said, you're available for agape and you live it. But you have a good idea, to return to the previous explanation, that the brothers and sisters who are on spiritual journeys, who have lived asceticism, who have lived retreats with this notion of duality, they cannot understand. You see, well, when we talked about joy, lightness, even humor, I think that Aïvanhov told you a short time ago, by Aïvanhov and impersonal, there can be no love without humor. Only reptiles are serious, they care about their postures, they care about their prerogatives, they seek by all possible means, even the most perverse, to take ascendancy over you, but it can no longer work, in a brother or sister who lives agape. You can only sympathize, you can only love them. You're absolutely right, it's in the present. And I will add one more thing. Of course. It is that, it is useless to speak, alright, since you're Christ. You remain silent and smile. Absolutely, and wherever you are, your presence in Christ is contaminating. Yes, exactly. You don't have to justify yourself anymore. Indeed, you no longer have to demonstrate. This does not prevent you from using the tools you use in all areas, whether it is, I do not know, the tarot, the clocks and others, that is something else, it concerns the person, but compared to what you are, you have nothing to demonstrate, and you know it well. You have to be present, I think you have heard it from Meba and Headmaster, it is the same, it is the radiance of your heart that escapes from you no matter what you do. You are Christ, yes, it is the truth, there is no other truth. Then let the impediments of joy tell you that. It is presumptuous, that you are proud, that you are mistaken, and do as Christ did and say, Father, forgive them, they do not know what they are doing. Indeed, they do not know that. Whatever they say, let them speak, be who you are, be natural, be spontaneous, let your heart shine. Everything else is done by itself. And the more you are in the moment, and the less you are in the justification, and the more your presence will transform the other, because you give him the most beautiful gift, the information of zero time. That is why I ever told you that before you could not open someone's heart, there too you do not open it, but you do, you allow the other to recognize himself in this zero time. And actually for that, you don't need energy, you don't need anything. You need silence. It is your presence that acts, it is not you, and especially not words, and especially not energies. It is your naturalness that acts. You are Christ, yes, that is the strict truth. And besides, then I know that there are countless brothers and sisters who are in the religions, and who await the physical return of Christ, because they have read, through the books, that Christ would return as he left, but they have understood nothing. Abba has amply demonstrated this to you during our period of silence. The Christic matrix is there. You're all the Son of Man, you're all Christ. Of course, it is far from Christ from religion, far from any religion. You discover that you are autonomous, that you are free from the truth. You don't need support, you don't need belief, and you don't need any projection anymore. Moreover, all those who live agape, even at times, do not care about any date. And all those who are looking for dates, apart from curiosity, it's that they want to protect themselves. Live agape, everything else is given to you, you have nothing to preserve, you have nothing to protect. To believe this is to put you under the control of duality, under the control of deviated or oblique light. You are the light of the world, you are the light of the created and the uncreated, you are the first dream, you're all dreams. It was explained by Feham, it was explained by these private interveners since last year, a little over a year ago, and especially by Abba, and also by your experiences. There is no longer any spirituality that can hold, and as Spider told you, today it is true, spirituality is a total fraud and consciousness a disease. Today we too affirm this, loud and clear. But saying it is useless if you don't live it. And if you object to that, it only proves one thing. You don't accept it and you don't live it. Without it, you could only, not adhere, but give your agreement, because you live it with the same truth. And everything is a pretext, a circumstance, whatever it may be that arises in your life to realize this truth, to understand it and to live it at the same time. Do you have anything else to say? I would just add that now is the time to take this truth to heart. Absolutely. Here and now. Just accept this truth and it is, really. If you accept within yourself, it is. But if you err on words, agape, if you err on the visions you have, you don't live it, it's that simple. That's why I like the expression red nose. They don't see their own noses. They see, as Christ said, the straw in the neighbor's eye, but they do not see their beam in their eyes. That is the truth. Thank you very much. Voice. There is another question. Sister, I have a question that is perhaps a little indiscreet. There's nothing intrusive for me. I have friends who are members of the White Brotherhood. Oh, these guys aren't going to agree with what I'm saying, they're frozen. That was my question, and they followed you in your lifetime. I dare not ask them if they have access to the transmissions you are making today. I do not dare, for fear of disturbing their fidelity to your teaching. Of course, but all those who have followed my teaching today are the most locked up. That's what I had to fix. Voice. So she doesn't dare to talk to them. Oh no, I don't want to see them. I've already had enough of them who came to see me at conferences and threw them out, my dear. They understood nothing, they were dependent on me, I was their father, they remained frozen in my teaching, they remained frozen on writings, they remained frozen on memories. And I remind you that, countless times, and I call them by their first names, because I know them, I still have all my head despite everything of my incarnation, and when I saw them land in different places in Paris, I called them by their first names, and I threw them out. That's it, the daddy next door, you're autonomous and free. So it is a very bad example to look for in spiritual groups. Today, and Brother K expressed it perfectly in his lifetime, and also in 2012, you cannot be free as soon as there is an organization and a movement. It's all over now. They're sclerosed, they're frozen in history. Do you think that Christ, if he came back today, you will physically recognize him? No. But you will crucify him in the same way, especially the spiritual ones. The spiritualists today are the Pharisees of the time, those who hold on to the law, those who hold on to what is fixed. There is no other possibility of openness in them. They are in fear. But of course, they will oppose it. Of course, they will never believe it is me. And yet I gave them proof in countless ways. I'll even tell you, at the beginning when I started expressing myself through the headmaster, I gave him the 3 objects that were to authenticate my successor. It would have been enough for the headmaster to go and see the fraternity, talk about these 3 objects, for him to be recognized. What did he say to me, the headmaster? Never in life. I don't want beings who follow me. And I said, well done. I said, bravo, you can't follow anyone. Eber keeps telling you that. As long as you believe you're among friends, safe in a movement, in a community, in a spiritual movement, and in any spiritual teaching today, you are not free. There is no agape in there. These were steps, but today they are dead weights. So please don't tell them anything. We've already had plenty of Paris. It's not worth seeing them disembark, because I'll throw them out. It's as simple as that. To shake them, not because I reject them, but so that they come out of this kind of morbid adoration of the teachings, of my character. You see them, they are satsurs, they are incapable of living without fear, they are incapable of living without protecting themselves from evil. When I was incarnate, there was no other possibility, but today agape is there. They are, as has been said for more than a year now, in history. They are emotional, most of them attached to their rites, their practices. Agape is not a practice, nor a rite. Agape is lived alone. Even if you take communion, even if you share with all the brothers, it is first of all in itself that it takes place. So, please, I don't want to see any more of these people I've seen for years, especially when I was speaking from Paris, because I kicked them out every time, because they don't come with the same perspective as you. It is not the same for those who approached me in my lifetime, and I recognize them when I see them. I'm talking about the people who really lived with me. But it wasn't my fault. They were the ones who created these kinds of links. There was no other possibility at the time. And today, any connection you feel with a character, with a story, with a teaching, literally prevents you from living agape. So please don't talk about it. Voice. She thanks you. I gave countless fears in everything you heard, long before the celestial wedding that authenticated, so the best authentication would have been that the headmaster gave the 3 objects to the universal white brotherhood. But I think he saw the trap. He saw the trap for him, not for the others, to find himself at the head of something. You know that brothers and sisters, and when they don't understand whatever is, they will accuse that it is a cult, that it is not true. They have not understood anything about the poor. And Headmaster was perfectly lucid on this one. They did not want to take care of souls, especially since he already knew friends who had been part of the fraternity. They were emotional, unable to be free. It's about time they woke up today. They are dependent and they've created dependent relationships with me. As with any master. Look at Esho, look at some of the beings who have created movements among the Melchizedeks. You attract from the moment brothers and sisters affiliate with you with the best of intentions, because they follow you, and there is no autonomy in following someone, and you are in the period, as I believe has been said, of empowerment. All this is archaic, these are the operating modes of the past. You don't need any prerequisites, I repeat, you don't need any vibration, you don't need any school, and especially no movement, and even less a religion, because you really have to be an unnamed stupidity when you look at it today, whatever the religion, without any exception. You look at them, they are sure that they have to conform to something to be free. They put a distance between them and the truth. They obey an external authority somewhere, and, of course, it is their religion that is right, not the others. I remind you that Krishnamurti told you, he repeated it as Brother K. As long as you declare yourself Buddhists, Christians, Muslims and Jews, you are violent, you are sectarian, you exclude all brothers and sisters who are not in the same religion as you. And it's something unconscious, whether you like it or not. You may say that Christ, and you are Catholics, loved everyone. You may turn the other cheek, but you are trapped by religions. In the same way that until ever dissolved the primary anomaly, you were trapped by religions, by archetypes, by the so-called great masters. Only Buddha told you not to follow anyone. Buddha didn't create anything. And besides, there are some who wanted to take over from him, but who can dare to say that they are taking over from Buddha, even if they are people who today express themselves perfectly on the advert of data, even if they faithfully transcribe the words of Nisargadatta. They have done exactly the opposite. There is no successor to Nisargadatta. That's impossible. All the transmission techniques, supposedly from the initiation of the master at the time of his death, to someone who was going to wear the same things as him, and you hit the same thing with Ram Shankar Babuji, Master Ram, you hit the same thing with Brother K, even though he got out. You hit exactly the same thing with Sri Aurobindo. They can wait a long time in Auroville, the return of the supramental, it is there. They have created an ideal. The ideal there is none, there is only the present moment. As soon as you have an ideal, you are no longer in the present moment, you are no longer available for agape. It is as simple as that, and I think that Headmaster, with all his knowledge of the brain, he has expressed it countless times. But it seems that some brothers and sisters simply do not have enough common sense. They are trapped by fear, by suffering. You can see the smiles of the brothers and sisters who live agape. The smile, the service, when you hug each other, even without doing the techniques developed by the headmaster, you experience it. And you think these brothers will be able to live it. So either they isolate themselves, they refuse to meet brothers and sisters, emphasizing that they need rest and silence, but they do not share. Either you have brothers and sisters who will put forward their conscience, the confrontation. The one who is in agape cannot be confronted, he is free. Apparently red noses have trouble understanding it, and they can't live it, so it's normal that they don't understand it. This is what Christ said, Father, forgive them, they do not know what they are doing. But you are all the Father, you're all Abba. So of course, for all those who are in stories of evolution, of vibration, this is not possible. But it shows, I tell you, like the nose in the middle of your face, and it's going to be more and more comic, really. There are those who are in agape, there are all those who are sleeping, but who will be the first, because they were in the present moment, even when they affirmed that they did not believe in anything and that they did not love anything, they are good, they are human, and you have, indeed, all those spiritual people who today are an obstacle. They resist, they fight the opposition, they fight the confrontation, and they do not live agape. And besides, they are opposed to it, for one reason or another. They will only tell you that agape is bullshit, and that whatever says takes you, supposedly, to nothing. But they did not experience that love came from nothing and that they are also that nothingness. And yet, that is what Nisargadatta spent all his time saying, and yet you have brothers and sisters who have left you, more recently, who are still alive or deceased, the same testimonies with simple words, stripped of any tradition. When there is nothing left, when everything is nothing, there is everything. But of course, these red noses cannot live it, and I am not saying it meanly, I am saying it without any animosity, I am saying it because it is the truth. They cannot live it, but they also have their functions, they also have their roles, but they do not yet know it. I'm going to go very far today. I'm going to tell you that all those, without exception, who have had, it's over, a reptilian lineage, or a reptilian ancestry, are part of the predators. No matter how kind they are, they carry it within them. It's their nature. They need to control, they need to lead, they need to control, and they don't let the other free, whatever they say. Freedom has no need of rules, and I repeat, if there is no humor, there is no love. It's as simple as that, not to mention joy, or breathing in the heart, or radiating the heart. No matter what you feel in your chest, you are light or not. And all those who have this reptilian ancestry or reptilian lineage must see that through their simulated consciousness, energies, vibrations, they see control and ancestry, whatever they say. it's mathematical. Once again, I do not condemn them, because I love them above all, and the one who lives agape cannot be deceived. The one who has the impression that he has been deceived is, because he has not lived agape, and there is still suffering, fear, lack in him, and he thinks he can fill this lack, or overcome this fear by control, by the need to control, by the need to lead, by the need to be listened to, by the need to have followers. They function like that. It is their nature. It is not their natural state, but it is their nature within the incarnation. But everything is perfect. Nothing is in any other place than its place, whether you like it or not. In agape, you can't want anything, you can only see that. And don't waste any time. There are enough brothers and sisters to love, everywhere around you, the child you meet on the street, the circumstances and the pretexts of all encounters. I'm not talking about here, but about anywhere. Everything is only a pretext to allow you to serve, to shine agape. You see. Do you agree with those who live agape? Yes, yes, yes. Don't you agree with that? Those who don't live, they're not going to answer, of course. Laughs. It was a joke. But we see your red noses, but don't worry, you are loved above all, because you are us. You refuse it, but we know it, we live it. And when you get tired of seeing brothers and sisters who love you and don't want to hear you anymore, don't want to follow you anymore, don't want to be controlled, well, as they say vulgarly, you'll give up, and you'll laugh at yourself. With a certain uneasiness, but it doesn't matter, it will pass. You will cry a good cry, like all those who discovered years ago that they had this reptilian origin and who logged the worlds together. You had your place just as much as Mary, I told you. But forget the roles, forget the archetypes. They have all been falsified, even Mary, even Christ. Greatness today, the greatness of radiance, not the greatness of the ego, is verified through humility, and certainly not after vibratory powers or visions, or the ability to federate beings. You see well everywhere in you, around you, in all countries, the number of spiritual movements that exist. There is no space of freedom in there. Autonomy is freedom. It is not an empty word, it is not belonging to anyone or anything, it is autonomy, and I fully understand that. Until now, there has been a form of security or comfort in joining movements, religions, but today, it is an enormous burden. It prevents you from being free. Imagine, I insist a lot on that, because you will see that red noses, they will be more and more virulent. Let them burn out. We will talk about it again when the sign of heaven, if we have the opportunity, of course, when the heavenly signs will be there. Come on, let's keep going. I think I'm staying, headmaster, he's resting, it's fine like that. And then you've had him long enough, haven't you? Laughs. And I am so happy to be able to express myself. So do we. You also tell me if you need a moment of rest, because it's starting to get very hot, in the chakras, in the head. It's normal, it's not me doing something, it's your embrace that does that. Voice. Yes, we'll stop a little bit, not for long. All right, we're doing. Not long anyway. Oh, as long as you want, there is no schedule requirement, so I don't greet you and say to you next time, and I retire right away, and when you want to come back, I'll come back, unless your headmaster doesn't let me come back, but he's not the master, I am. Laughs. Come on, I'll see you soon, see you soon. Transmission interruption due to technical faults. And well, dear friends, we will resume our talks. I will stay with you. Headmaster lets me speak, and I am very happy to stay a little longer with you. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate, we'll take it from there. We had left it, I think, on reptilian ancestries and lines. That's it, good. So we take a subject, what you actually want, don't hesitate. Everyone settles in. It always takes time to restart the machine. Voice. That's it, everyone settles in. You're very good, aren't you? So, who takes the course of the questions, or the testimonies, or in what you want to say? Voice. There is a question. So let's listen. Voice. Can they ask more down-to-earth questions? Yes, of course, if I can answer them. Brother. Voice. That's it. When there is an emotional shock, for example, there will be a kind of emptiness, a fullness of life, a full life. Absolutely. But first it starts with what you call emotional shocks, whether recent or old, you know very well, will block specific areas of the body. In general, it's either what you call the solar plexus, the menu chakra, but also more and more now, the throat chakra. So what is your question? After, of course, there is a void, but at the beginning, it is an obstruction, the energy is frozen. Here, so, at that moment, is there a kind of life form, like a parasite that can settle in that void and maintain the imbalance, maintain unrest? Yes, of course, it is perfectly known, it is what you call parasitages, possessions, but, today, I remind you that with agape, from the moment you lived it, once, you no longer even have to deal with an entity or a possession. If you put yourself in agape resonance, or in fire of the sacred heart, no entity whatsoever, can resist. Even if the brother or sister who carries this entity, it does not live agape, it is enough that you live it, and without thinking of hunting or freeing as they say, this entity, you put yourself in agape resonance, in fire of the sacred heart, and you will notice that no entity can remain in front of the fire of the sacred heart. Except, of course, for one case, which exists, contrary to what one might think, where the person who carries this entity has accepted it and has established, as you say, a kind of symbiosis or partnership. There, of course, agape will not be able to do anything. But if there is a sincere request from a brother or sister, especially today, do not return to duality, that is, exorcisms, or disengagements, or prayers or rituals. Put yourself in agape, and you will find that no entity can remain with agape that you issue, if I may say so. So it is much easier, from the moment you live agape, to remain in agape, and even if you do not feel it, you have the gestures, you cannot do them at those moments, but nothing prevents you from crossing your ankles, for example, nothing prevents you from pronouncing agape, 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 Vaham, 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 and to check that it is enough to disable and restore circulation, as you say, energy or life. Of life, that's it. Absolutely. I would say that, even though agape's action is far superior, for example, to what I did when I was incarnate, where I was forced to use Kabbalah, the Zephyr tree, magic rituals, white magic, of course, but it was magic. Today, agape's magic is far more powerful than any action related to your will or knowledge. The simple vibratory rise that you have known for some years, not to mention agape, is most often enough to identify, as you say, these entities. And I believe that you and Ebba led for many months the process he called the absorption of essences, as I said last time, when some of you had a feast, and by absorbing demons, by literally eating them. You had already had proof, for many of you, of the action of the absorption of essences. Today, with radiation, or if you prefer the fire of the sacred heart, this particular radiance, no entity can resist. Because there are no more primary anomalies and agape is open to everyone. And once again, I repeat, even the icons cannot maintain themselves when you live agape, it is impossible. Thank you, that's what I wanted to hear. Thank you. It's perfect then. Come on, another question, or something else to testify to. What you want to say is important, don't hold back anything. I won't yell at you like Baidu, you know that. Laughs. But I don't have anything against Baidu, do I? Voice. He's not yelling at us now. It doesn't seem to me that the last time he didn't push 2 or 3 yelling women. Voice. Oh, yes, I think so, yes, it is true. Laughs. but hey, it's his way of crossing you, piercing you and freeing you. Voice. A brother would like to express something. Who? Voice. A brother. Ah, a brother. So we're listening to you. Voice. He is not sure he can't transmit what he wants to transmit. It doesn't matter, be spontaneous, and if I don't understand you, there will be others who will. Don't worry about it, be true and spontaneous, don't think, it'll come out on its own. It is also one of the particularities of agape. You don't need to think about sentences. Remember that when agape was there, even for 2 minutes, what comes out of you is the word. That's why we insisted on the fact, and we kept telling you not to judge, but especially not to judge you either. And the more spontaneous you're in what comes out, without thinking, the more likely it is to be fair. So go ahead, don't hold anything back. Brother. Voice. I remember from my earliest childhood, having had access to a whole bunch of spiritual lessons, I felt that my being was really waiting for that, permanent. How old was that, excuse me? How old were you when you said you were young? Was that before 14 years or after? 6 years, 7 years. Absolutely, this is the age when I remind you that the astral body, that is, the individuality of the soul, is not yet complete and there is, therefore still a certain form of plasticity at that age, yes. I'm listening, continue. My parents were with Christianity, so I already had access to that, and I quickly found my limits, very young. I then had access to Jehovah's Witnesses, and then other religions such as Buddhism through reading. Oh, you know, I think if we asked all the brothers and sisters who are there and everywhere, many of us have gone through different experiences, let's say. And all these accesses always have me, I mean, there's always a limit to something, there's something I felt it was limited. So every time I got out, and today it's not about what I experienced this morning. What was his experience this morning? Voice. This morning he felt a huge emotion when he had access to the agape technique, with his hands on his head, and he felt a huge emotion. If he has understood correctly that all those who lock themselves in a spiritual path are, in quotation marks, in error. Today, really. But I repeat, no guilt about the past, because at the time, I don't know if it was 10 years ago, but even a few years ago, it was not possible to do otherwise, do you understand that? Alright, keep going. My question is to ask myself if what I have had access to so far, and what I have access to today and that I touch with my finger and that has been demonstrated to me in a very concrete way, is it not? End of video, battery problem or other. Through LUC AYOUN. Les Transformations. English translation, LMF.